the last thing we studied was Genesis chapter 6, fallen angels having intercourse with human beings, and in turn having uh, babies with these humans, and and call them Nephilites, which giants. And so this led to, I may be getting ahead of myself, but I'm just gonna spit it out. We'll clean it all up later. This is the reason, and I don't know if you like me, but this is the reason why the flood occurred. This flood with Noah, and most of all of us read about the flood, and when we had vacation Bible school, we read about the flood that occurred with Noah. So I always ask myself why when I read stuff. Okay, God, why did you flood the whole earth? Well, when we read Genesis chapter 6, I got Genesis chapter 6, 7, 8, and all the way up to, I got a couple of chapters. It kind of condensed a lot of the reading down because it was just a lot of reading in it that you can do on your personal time. But anyway, Genesis chapter 6 and 12, it gives us the reason why God sent this flood. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, behold simply means to just fasten and just to examine, and behold, it was corrupt. So the earth was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. So pretty much everybody except for Noah and his sons pretty much was all eaten up with evil, didn't want God, didn't desire to do what was right. And so he said, you know what, I'm gonna hit the reset button. So that's why it happened. And Noah went in, and so now I'm gonna put some of these scriptures on the screen, probably all of them if I have time. But Noah went in. This is chapter 7. So we were just at chapter 6 and 12. Chapter 7. So after all the water, it started raining for 4 days, and then we get to this. And then just in between time, the part that I didn't put in this slide was God was telling Noah how to build the boat, who can go in with him, and so that's kind of what happened. 7 and 7 of Genesis. And Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him unto the ark because of the waters of the flood. So everything started taking place. And they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. So this is obviously God doing this to make sure that the earth can be repopulated. And they that went in male and female of all flesh. And God had, as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut the door. So that was Genesis chapter 7 and 16. I just condensed a lot of the reading down so we can just get the facts out of this. So male and female went in, and I just told you why, so they can repopulate the earth, and God shut the door. Now, when I usually read about God shutting the door, I always say, well, God did it because maybe Noah wouldn't have shut the door if he heard somebody yelling, or if an animal swam up to the door, he would have felt sorry and let him in. That's all speculation. But anyway, God shut the door. 7 and 17 of Genesis. And the flood was 40 days. I put this in the slide because it was just interesting that Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. And then you got this flood that lasted for 40 days. And some other occurrences in the Bible where things happened for 40 days. So in the flood was 40 days upon the earth. And the waters increased and bare up the ark. And it was lift up above the earth. So that water, I put a post on Facebook. It said, water so weak yet so strong. And it really is. And the Lord, so now, let me read it and I'll tell you why I put this in the slide. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor, or a sweet smell. And this is, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again, or I will never again curse the ground anymore for man's sake. For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. He said, I'll never kill everything on earth again. I'll never do it again, is what God's saying. Now, for God to smell this sweet savor, or this sweet smell, it was because when Noah got off the ark, he did a sacrifice to God, and he took animals on the ark just for to be sacrifices. And still going back to my first message about Cain and Abel, when God's good to you, you ought to bless him back. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about you ought to give God a praise. But then more than anything, with our lifestyle, we need to say, God, you've been good. You saved me. And in Noah's sense, Noah could have said, God, you've been so good to me. Your grace is on me. Your grace is on my family. You saved my children. You saved my wife. You saved me. Well, I'm going to give my life to you. And, we always, I like to use Romans chapter 12. It says, present your body a living sacrifice. And it says holy. So it's and all it's saying is you give God your best. And it's not a dead sacrifice. Because in the Old Testament, they had to kill animals and then sacrifice them. But now it's saying you present your body a living sacrifice, holy to God. So that's I think that's what we should do. And so anyway, Abraham sacrificed to God when he got off that boat. And I guess it was his way of saying thanks. Genesis chapter 8, verse 22. While the earth remaineth, and this is God giving him the promises and just letting him know that I'm not going to flood anything. I'm not going to curse the ground. And so, but he says, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. That's while the earth remains. As long as the earth exists, that's pretty much what he's saying. He's pretty much saying there's going to be seasons. So we need to keep in mind that life is seasonal. And some people don't. Some people hate seasons. Some people act like when stuff happens seasonally, we act. I wouldn't say dumb because dumb means you can't speak, but we act like we're ignorant to the facts that life is seasonal. And it's almost another subject, but since he put it here, we need to talk about it. We need to learn how to prepare for ups and downs, highs and lows, cold and hot. And even in my line of work, I have to make sure that when I'm in the warmer season, that I set aside for the cooler seasons. And then also I need to understand this first portion of this verse. He said, while the earth remain, seed time and harvest. I need to learn how to sow good seeds. I need to learn how to put things up so that it'll pay me back in the long run or the short run or whenever harvest time comes around. So keep that in mind. Chapter 9 and 1 of Genesis. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and he said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. If you want to have kids, and I know this, let me say this first. This sounds like him talking to Adam and Eve, because if you remember Genesis, it said God blessed them, and he said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish. So it's a blessing to be able to multiply and replenish. So consider it a blessing when you're fruitful with a wife now. So I don't think it's a blessing when you're fruitful and you got 3 women pregnant and you end up not being able to take care of your business. So don't get it twisted. So, yeah, I'm real blessed. I got women all over town. No, that's fornication. So, but when you got a wife and you start having kids, it's God blessing you. If you're praying for kids, God bless me to be fruitful, to multiply, so and to fill up my house. So anyway, they use the term replenish here on earth. That's what God told Noah and his sons. They need to repopulate. So now, all these people, God just really hit the reset button. Verse 9, I keep saying verse, but chapter 9, verse 13. I have placed my rainbow. This is a New Living Translation. I've placed my rainbow in the clouds. It is a sign of my covenant with you and with all the earth. Now this is, they keep using covenant in the Bible, and that's fine. But in a sense, God is saying this is our contract. This is a sign of my promise to you. He said, I place my rainbow in the clouds. King James say, I've set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant. Or it's going to show you about my promise. It's going to make you remember the promise I made you between you, me, and the earth. And what's the promise? Let's read it and we'll find out. When I send the clouds over the earth, the rainbow will appear in the clouds. That's 9 and 14. 9 and 15. And I will remember my promise, or my covenant, the King James says, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the water shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. New Living real quick. And I will remember my covenant with you and with all living creatures. Never again will the flood waters destroy all life. 16, I'm going to talk about it in a second. 16, New Living. When I see the rainbow in the clouds, I will remember the eternal covenant between God and every living creature on earth. The King James said an everlasting covenant. So this is through the Old Testament all the way to the New. He says, as long as the earth remains, I want you to remember when you see a rainbow in the air, that God is saying, I'm not going to ultimately destroy all the inhabitants of the earth anymore. I won't do that again. At least not by flood. When you get to chapter 10, it goes on to give the same reason why I skipped over Genesis chapter 5. It started giving this long spiel on the bloodline and the generations of different people. And I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just simply saying read that on your own personal time. But this is how it starts. This is the account of the families of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the three sons of Noah. Many children were born to them after the great flood, so they end up having a bunch of children after the flood. Let's talk about the rainbow real quick, because this is, once again, something very important. The LGBTQ people have used the rainbow as their symbol, and it's kind of made the rest of the world kind of shy away from it. But we should not, and we should remember that the original meaning, the God-given meaning for the rainbow, is to promise that he will never flood the entire earth again and kill all mankind and animals and all. So that's what the rainbow means. And I'm not picking on LGBTQ because I think the church, the people that's supposed to help everybody, have been for the most part. I don't want to pick on every church, but for the most part, the church, some churches have been very rude to people because they say they're gay or lesbian or whatever. The church has been rude to them. Well, you can get mad at me if you would like, but I'm not going to be rude to people because they choose to be gay or homosexual or lesbian. Now, let me be clear. I respectfully disagree with that lifestyle. I don't believe God has that's the plan of God for them. The people use the term gay. Gay means happy, and most people that's gay, they're not happy. And I believe just by faith, if they will walk away from that lifestyle, even though it might hurt, even though it may be uncomfortable for a while, I believe God will bless you and make your joy full. So, and I didn't want to make this out of a message against LGBTQs. I want to say I love you, LGBTQ, everybody, and just don't agree with it, but love you as a person, and wouldn't dare and not gonna ever call people names and be rude. I wouldn't do that. I just don't think I would win any souls or gain any followers to Christ if I call people name and yell out a bunch of insults. So anyway, we love you. Just don't agree with all due respect. So yeah, that's where we are. I'll stop right there. We're going to pick up in chapter 11 on our next broadcast. We'll pick up in chapter 11, and I'm looking at it on my screen, but I just, for the sake of time, I'll stop right there. because it's going into where they're going to talk about the Tower of Babel, and it's where all the languages came from. So interesting, and I'll see you next time.